critical like that, it's better to give guidance, reassurance, positive attention. So when he does something right, you reward that instead of constantly criticizing something he's doing wrong. Basically, in a nutshell, kids model after parents, to a great degree. They watch how we do everything. It's amazing, I'll start to get angry, and my son will look at me. He's 4, and he'll look up at me with these big, bright eyes, not in any fear. It's more like, what's he going to do next? I can't wait to see, because that's what I'm going to do when I get mad. If Dad's doing it, it must be the right thing, And I catch myself and I go, wow, better stop here for a second. You kind of have to pretend like you're being, like pretend Big Brother's watching or something every time you're with your kids, So you start to go off in anger, you start to have, some issue. Make sure you stop, try to stop and objectively think about it, and think, is this the right way is this what I want to teach him? Is this how I want him to grow up, and react when he's an adult? We'll go into that in a few minutes some more, but they do model everything after us. It's amazing how much they absorb. Even things that we say, like there are things about me that I say a lot, and I'm sure you guys realize it. I don't realize it. We're all that way, though. We don't see our own stuff as easy as other people do. But it's amazing because, once in a while, a 4-year-old will come up and say something, it'll just be like deja vu. It's something that I've said, I must say a lot, because now they're starting to mimic it and say the same thing. So it's kind of interesting. Wanted to go into the sort of the final thing I want to talk about tonight, and that is emotional intelligence. Again, I had done this talk before, and I don't know, maybe Laura, you might have seen this one already, but I had never filmed it. So emotional intelligence, I think, is something that I don't think a lot of people know about. I think you had some knowledge about last time, but yeah, I guess I have websites, and I'm going to turn this anyway. But there's some books, that's what I was going to show you, some books on this, so we'll open up to that first. But emotional intelligence, what the heck does that mean? You've heard of IQ, right? Intelligence quotient. The EQ, or emotional quotient, that some people call it the EQ, I don't know, but emotional intelligence is basically a child's ability, or anybody's ability, to recognize emotion and modulate it, know how to deal with it in a healthy way. So I think, unfortunately, in our society, a lot of folks don't do this very well. Anything emotional, and they just want to clam up and just avoid it. Any kind of emotion, whether it's happiness, sadness, any of that stuff. They just, certainly crying and things like that. I mean, how many times have you heard that? Oh, suck it up, quit crying, don't be a baby, don't be a crybaby, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's an emotion. We have that ability for some reason. God or whoever created us gave us this ability, and it's there for a reason. It's probably some sort of outlet for our emotions, is actually what it is. But it's funny to hear folks say those things. But in emotional intelligence, what they've discovered is that folks that have high emotional intelligence are much more likely to succeed in life than folks that are just plain intelligent. And because you can be extremely book smart and intelligent, but if you can't deal with people, which obviously emotional intelligence helps you with, if you can't deal with people, you're not going to go very far in our society. I mean, you could live like the Unabomber in the mountains, I suppose, and be just fine, but I'm not sure that's the best way to live. So most of us, we have jobs, we interact with people at work, we have bosses, we have spouses, we have kids and other family members, a lot of interactions with people. This emotional intelligence, I think a lot of us sort of take it for granted if we have it. And even if we don't have it, we don't know anything about it, and it's not a big deal. So I guess I'm trying to talk a little bit about it tonight so that folks realize that I think it's just as important as raising our kids to be academically smart. So yeah, it's good to focus on learning all your math facts and all your reading and all this. That's great, and that'll come, so put some emphasis on it, that's fine. But don't forget the emotional stuff. If you can give your child that ability to be emotionally intelligent growing up and going into adulthood, that child's going to succeed. And actually the folks that, this Daniel Goleman is the next page here. I'll go ahead and flip that. He wrote this book, Emotional Intelligence, which is a very good book if you want to check it out. It talks a lot about this stuff. And they had looked at some CEOs of some big companies in the country, And they found that a lot of these folks had very high emotional intelligence levels. They weren't necessarily always the smartest people. They weren't necessarily the geniuses of the company. There were a lot of geniuses in the company, but they weren't, they weren't the CEOs. The CEOs were the ones that could deal with people. Sort of makes sense, right? They advanced up the ladder by being able to deal with people. If you can't deal with people, you're not getting a promotion, probably, right? So you're getting put in a lab somewhere, and forgotten about it, I suppose. But so this emotional intelligence, it very much gives kids a leg up, so to speak. And the kids will learn this from us. Again, just like I said, they'll take it from us. If we're doing it, they'll sort of mimic that. They'll model that. If we're not doing it, then they will never know any different. They'll just grow up thinking emotions are bad and or something to be ignored anyway, and not dealt with, not spoken of. And of course, nobody benefits from that situation. But these, the kids that get these traits, they tend to be able to control their impulses better. They can delay gratification better. I mean, how many kids these days can do that? Not too many, right? They want something, they want it now, baby. Give it to me now. Quick and easy thing. Of course, all of us, to some degree, are like that. It's hard to find somebody anymore that can, that can work and work and work and put a lot of work into something to get something at the end. A lot of times these days, folks, even as a doctor, I can tell you, they come to my office and I tell them, I think you should do some cognitive behavioral therapy. That's going to be the best treatment for your panic disorder or whatever. No, doc, just give me a pill. I want to fix it. Just give me a pill. I want to fix it quick. I don't have to work at it. Weight loss, same thing. You quit smoking. You don't want to work at it. It's too much work. So delayed gratification is kind of a hard thing, and this emotional intelligence can teach kids that. They tend to be able to motivate themselves better if they're more emotionally intelligent. Kids are anyway. The kids that are. They read social cues better, and they cope with stress better too. They tend to be. And you'll see this, some kids are just sort of like this, or even from the get-go, but they'll see another little child in the room crying, and they'll walk up to the little child and give him a teddy bear and give him a hug or something. That's an emotionally intelligent child. They recognized that there was hurt in that other child, and they went over and tried to do something about it. That's emotional intelligence. A lot of us would, certainly as adults, I don't know that we would all feel comfortable doing that kind of thing. One little quick digression is that, I think some people have a difficult time with this emotional intelligence, and I think one of the things, this is my own theory, so just take it for what it's worth, but I was thinking about some stuff I read about autism. They have discovered that, with autism, I don't know if you know much about that, but with autism, kids that have, or folks that have autism, they're very socially averse. They don't want to be, they won't have social contact with you. And if you meet them, they won't look you in the eye. They won't hardly look at your face. They'll look down or look away. And so scientists tried to figure out why was that? What the heck's going on there? And they discovered there's a part of the brain that we all probably take for granted, but it's a part of the brain that that allows us to look at someone's face and read the cues as to how this interaction is going. So if Laura's smiling at me, then I feel like it's going pretty well. If she's gritting her teeth and kind of looking like that, I feel like, boy, I better back off a little bit. I better stop talking about whatever I'm talking about, because she's obviously getting pretty ticked off, and I may lose my head. So, I have this ability to read what by looking at her face only, really. I mean, sometimes the rest of the body too, but a lot of it's the face. There's a part of the brain that controls that. Okay, and they looked at that part of the brain in folks with autism, and they found it wasn't functioning like it should. So think about it. I mean, these are folks that can't. They'll look at you and they can't tell. I mean, you're sure shooting, you could be wanting to rip their head off. They wouldn't have any idea. They can't tell if you're happy, sad, or what kind of emotion, or how that interaction is going at all. So what would you do if it was you? You'd avoid it too, wouldn't you? I'd avoid it. I wouldn't want to deal with it. I'd look away, I'd kind of cower away. I wouldn't want to be around people. It fits, doesn't it? To me, it fits perfectly. So think about it for a second. To be emotionally intelligent, that part of the brain has to be functioning. And I guess the more functional it is, the better off you are at reading social cues from somebody and realizing, okay, I better tone it down a little bit, I better shift the topic a little bit, I'm kind of ticking them off a little bit, that kind of thing. I think that I've seen in my practice a spectrum along a line from autism, where you can't read cues at all, to being able to do that very, very well and being very emotionally intelligent. So I think there are some folks here in the middle that aren't autistic by any stretch, but they have a difficult time. I mean, they'll look at you right in the eye and they'll tell you something disturbing. And even though you're sitting there going, like, jaws dropping because I can't believe you're saying this to me. They can't get it. They just keep